Okay, let's start with something I think everyone listening has felt. It's almost physical, right? This jolt.
Uh-huh. Tell me about it.
You know, you're moving through your day, everything's noisy, traffic, phone buzzing, the chatter in your own head, and then bam.
Sudden quiet.
Yeah, total quiet, like you walk into an empty room or maybe, I don't know, a really quiet library, and it hits you. This silence.
And what's the first reaction for most people, for you listening right now?
Yeah.
Is it this wave of calm?
No, not at all. It's like the opposite. It's this tightening.
The contraction.
Yeah, contraction.
Yeah.
That's a perfect word for it.
My hand, like, twitches. I swear, it reaches for my phone. Even when I know I put it away, my brain just screams, danger, something's wrong.
Right. The absence of noise is perceived as a problem to be solved.
Totally.
Yeah.
And my mind just, it scrambles. Starts replaying some dumb argument from yesterday or
Yeah.
worrying about a deadline that's months away. Exposed,
soundless.
restless.
Yeah, this raw restlessness just bubbles up. And it's all because for that one moment, nothing external is happening to, like, distract me.
And that restlessness, that almost frantic searching for something, anything, to fill that space, that really is the heart of what we're diving into today, isn't it?
It feels like it. It's so common.
It is. It points to this condition, maybe a modern condition, maybe timeless, where noise and constant input aren't just, entertainment. They become our armor.
Armor, yeah. Like putting on headphones, endlessly scrolling.
Exactly. We often think we're seeking something, information, connection, but maybe deep down we're actually just avoiding.
Avoiding what, though? Avoiding the silence itself.
Avoiding what the silence allows us to hear. Avoiding that moment of meeting ourselves, maybe, without the usual filters, without the shields up.
The great avoidance. I feel that. But why? That's the big question for this deep dive, isn't it? Why does the absence of stuff feel like such a, I don't know, a threat? Why is just being still so uncomfortable?
Okay, so that right there, that's the core insight we need to unpack.
Yeah.
And it's profound. The silence in itself, it doesn't actually create the discomfort.
It doesn't. That feels counterintuitive.
I know it does. But think of it this way. Silence only reveals the discomfort that's already humming away inside us.
So the anxiety, the restlessness, that feeling of not quite right.
It was already there all along, running like a background program beneath the noise of everyday life. The moment the music stops, the distractions fall away. Suddenly, there it is.
Unmasked. That armor drops and you see what's underneath. Wow.
Exactly. What was hidden gets exposed.
Oh, okay. Let's unpack that unmasking then. If silence is pulling back the curtain, what is it actually showing us about ourselves, about our inner lives? And I guess the crucial part is, how do we stop fighting it? How do we lean in?
That's the mission for today. That's precisely what we're going to explore. What does silence actually bring to the surface? Why does that part of us we call the ego fight stillness so hard? And crucially, how can we use this quality of awareness sati in the Buddhist tradition to maybe transform that deep avoidance into a kind of liberation?
Okay, I'm ready. Where do we start with the stuff that comes up?
Let's start with a metaphor, a really central one from contemplative traditions. Think of your mind, your consciousness, as a lake.
Okay.
A big, deep body of water.
Okay, a lake. That image feels calming, actually, but also a bit deep. Like, there's a lot down there I don't usually look at.
Right, and that's the point. Now, all the stuff that usually fills our days, our thoughts, worries, plans, emails, social media, the news, think of all that as the wind.
The wind blowing across the lake. Makes sense.
And when that wind is constantly blowing, what happens to the surface of the water?
It gets choppy, agitated. You can't see through it.
Exactly. It's opaque. The surface is reflecting all the chaos of the moment, right? And when it's like that, you have no chance of seeing what's beneath.
Yeah.
You can't see the bottom, the currents, the life down there.
So the surface chaos, that becomes our whole reality. We think the waves are the lake.
Perfectly put. We mistake the waves for the ocean. Now imagine the wind stops, the distractions settle down, silence arrives. What happens to the water?
It becomes still, clear.
Utterly, profoundly still. And here's the crucial bit. The stillness doesn't create anything new in the lake. It just provides the right conditions, the environment for everything that was already hidden down there to slowly, gently rise to the surface.
And what rises up, hey, I know this feeling, it's usually the tough stuff, isn't it? The things we build those noise walls to keep down.
Often, yes. It might be old wounds you thought were healed, grief you never fully processed, those nagging little fears about not being good enough, or maybe just this quiet, unsettling ache, a kind of longing that our busy lives are so good at drowning out.
And we usually think, oh no, I sat down to meditate and all this junk came up. I must be doing it wrong. My mind's broken.
Right. That's the common cultural takeaway. Failure. But the insight from these traditions, like from the ancient Pali Canon texts, is the opposite. This surfacing isn't a sign of failure. It is the process. It's the beginning of seeing clearly, maybe even healing. It's just part of being human.
Okay, that reframes everything. The discomfort isn't failure, it's feedback. It's the system working.
It's the system revealing itself, which is necessary work.
So if the lake shows the material rising up, then that physical urge I feel, that restlessness, the need to grab the phone, that must be the mind trying to whip up the wind again, right? Trying to make the surface choppy so I don't have to see what's underneath.
That's a brilliant connection, yes. Buddhist psychology has a name for that restless quality. The monkey mind. Sita.
Monkey mind. I've heard that. It sounds chaotic.
It is. Picture a monkey just constantly leaping, branch to branch, never settling, never satisfied, never just resting where it is, always needing the next thing.
That sounds exhausting. Like seriously draining.
It is. And here's a key distinction. The monkey mind isn't necessarily afraid of silence in the way we think of fear.
Yeah.
It literally doesn't know how to be without moving. It has no skills for stillness.
And if we identify with that monkey, if we think that's who we are,
Then we believe that constant agitated movement is our natural, necessary state. We think stillness is somehow wrong or unproductive.
which feels very true for modern life, right? Stop moving, stop producing, and you become irrelevant or lazy.
That's the cultural pressure, absolutely.
Oh.
And beneath all that frantic jumping, what is the monkey running from? Often it's our feelings, our emotions.
The stuff arising from the lake.
Exactly. We're often trained culturally to see emotions, fear, sadness, shame, even intense joy sometimes as interruptions, problems to be fixed, silenced, maybe even medicated away immediately.
Like tactical issues to be neutralized.
But what if they aren't problems? What if they're messengers? In the texts, they talk about Vedana, feeling tones, these immediate raw sensations that arise the instant we make contact with the world.
Feeling tones.
They carry crucial data, information about our inner landscape, our relationship to what's happening right now. They're the first non-wordy signals from our system.
Okay, I get that they're messengers, but how do I tell the difference between a helpful message, like, uh-oh, that deadline is important, and just the monkey mind freaking out unnecessarily?
That's a great question. It often comes down to proportionality and what happens next. A healthy response might be a feeling followed by appropriate action or consideration. The monkey mind's reaction is often disproportionate, and its main move is avoidance.
Avoidance? How?
When an uncomfortable Vedana arises, say, a prickle of worry, the monkey doesn't pause to look at it, it just leaps, jumps immediately to another branch, check email, eat something, pick a fight, turn on the TV, anything to avoid sitting with that raw feeling.
So putting on the noise arm or scrolling, numbing out. That's basically shooting the messenger or locking them in a closet.
You're drowning them out. And here's the crucial consequence of that avoidance.
Yeah.
You don't actually destroy the emotion by ignoring it. You can't just will it away.
It doesn't just vanish.
No, it's more like
Yeah.
you bury it alive. And things buried alive don't tend to rest peacefully, do they?
No. They tend to make trouble later.
They ferment, they curdle, they turn into that background hum of chronic issues. That low-grade anxiety that doesn't seem attached to anything specific, that constant irritability, or sometimes just this profound numbness where you can't feel the good stuff either.
That makes so much sense. I can feel totally anxious or just snappish, even when on paper everything's fine. It's like the echo of all those buried feelings trying to get my attention.
They are demanding attention.
Yeah.
And silence. Silence is the space where we finally have no choice but to hear that demand clearly without the usual static. Silence asks us to stop being the grave dive and maybe start being the witness.
The witness. Okay. That leads us to the thing doing all the burying and running, right? The ego. Can we talk about that? What is the ego in this context of stillness?
Absolutely. The word ego gets thrown around a lot, especially in Western pop psychology. We tend to think of it as our solid self, the I, the main character in our life story.
Yeah, the boss inside.
Right. But in the framework we're exploring today, drawn from these contemplative psychologies, the ego isn't really a solid thing at all. It's more like a continuous process.
A process? How so?
It's the mind's relentless, ongoing activity of identification. It's the story generator, the constant narrative that says, I am this, I am successful, I am angry, I am smarter than them. Or just as often, I am broken, I'm not good enough, I'll never figure this out.
So it defines itself by the running commentary it produces.
Precisely. And this whole identity building project, It fundamentally needs noise to survive. It needs constant feedback, constant validation, and maybe, most importantly, it often thrives on drama.
Drama, like conflict and problems.
Yes, the ego builds its sense of being solid, of being real, through contrast, through opposition. It defines itself against things. I'm right, they're wrong, this is good, that's bad. If everything is just calm, quiet, settled, the ego gets nervous. It has nothing to push against, nothing to fight for, nothing to prove.
Wow, so silence isn't just annoying to the monkey mind. It's actually like an existential threat to the ego's whole project.
That's a perfect way to phrase it, an existential threat. Think about what pure silence offers the ego. There are no roles to perform, no scripts to recite, there's no audience applauding or judging.
The identity machine just runs out of gas.
Completely. The ego suddenly has nothing to cling to. No story, no task, no complaint, no identity marker to grasp.
Ah,
And that feeling, for the ego,
Yeah.
it feels like falling, like tumbling into a bottomless void.
oh, I know that feeling, that groundlessness. It triggers pure panic in me sometimes. Like the world is spinning because I don't know who I'm supposed to be in that quiet moment. I feel dissolved.
That panic is the ego. It's the ego desperately trying to grab the controls back, trying to generate a new, urgent story. Fix this, do something, feel something else. It's terrified that if it stops performing, if it stops defining itself, it will literally just disappear,
Yeah.
cease to exist.
Yeah. Annihilation.
But here's where we introduce a really radical reversal, a question. What if that feeling of falling, the one that feels so terrifying,
Yeah.
what if it's actually the beginning of something else entirely? What if that groundlessness is actually flying?
Flying into what? If I let go of the story, host, speaker, competent person, trying hard, what's left, it feels like nothingness, which is terrifying.
The terror comes from clinging to the idea that you are only that fixed, limited story. The feeling of annihilation is only a threat if you believe the role is the whole reality. The flight begins when we start to entertain the possibility that we aren't falling into non-existence,
Yeah.
but maybe falling out of the cage of that limited story and into something much bigger,
Bigger, like what? Awareness itself.
like boundless awareness. Yes, the terror is the resistance to letting go of the familiar cage. The liberation is the surrender to the possibility that you are not the role you play. You are the space in which all roles appear and disappear. The self isn't lost. The definition of the self, the limiting definition, starts to dissolve.
Okay, I can grasp that intellectually, falling into awareness, not away from existence. But like in the actual moment when the silence hits and the discomfort surges, that urge to resist is still so strong. How do we actually do that? Make the choice moment by moment to stop fighting and start allowing.
This is where practice comes in. This is where we shift from understanding to experiencing. The conscious choice to just sit with the silence, even if it's literally just for 30 seconds between tasks. That is the practice of sati.
Sati, mindfulness, presence.
Yes, it's the conscious act of remembering to pay attention to what's happening right now, without judgment.
Okay, but I know a lot of people, myself included sometimes, get put off by mindfulness because they think it means you have to somehow force your mind to be blank, which feels impossible when the monkey mind is doing gymnastics.
That's the biggest misconception, and it causes so much unnecessary struggle. Sati is absolutely not about fighting your thoughts or suppressing them or trying to fix them. If you're wrestling with your thoughts, you're still caught in the ego's drama.
Right. Yeah, just a different kind of noise.
Exactly. Mindfulness, sati, is more like allowing the lake to settle all by itself. You're not trying to flatten the waves, you're just creating the conditions for the wind to die down. You're fostering an inner environment where, maybe for the first time, you're not required to be at war with yourself.
Letting the wind stop instead of trying to make it stop.
Precisely. You allow the conditions for stillness. And when you do that, even for brief moments, something really radical starts to shift in how you relate to your own inner world. This is the great discovery that happens in stillness.
What's the discovery?
You start to notice, through direct experience, not through theory, that thoughts just arise. And then, critically, they pass, they dissolve. You notice that emotions, waves of sadness, flashes of anger, moments of peace, they come, they might peak, and then they recede.
So they aren't like permanent fixtures. They aren't me. They're more like weather patterns passing through.
Exactly. Weather patterns passing through the vast sky of your awareness, you begin to realize, maybe subtly at first, that the I who is observing the fear is not the same thing as the fear itself.
Ah, that little gap.
That little gap is everything. That subtle but profound realization. That's the first taste of Anato, the teaching of not self.
Okay, anatta, not self. This is where my Western brain sometimes just hits a wall. It sounds like nihilism. Like, if there's no fixed me, then what's the point of anything? Love, effort, getting better? Am I just a meaningless pile of parts?
That's the ego's immediate counter-argument, isn't it? If I'm not this specific story, then I must be nothing. But anate doesn't mean you vanish into oblivion. It means your true nature, your essential being, isn't fixed. It isn't solid. And it certainly isn't defined by the narrow, repetitive, often anxious stories the ego constantly spins in the noise.
So the ego is the fixed story. Anate is.
Anate points to the vast, open, boundless space of awareness in which all those stories, all those feelings, all those identities appear and dissolve. The freedom isn't becoming nothing. The freedom is being liberated from the exhausting job of constantly defending and maintaining an impossible, static definition of who you think you were supposed to be.
It's the freedom to change.
Yeah.
To not be locked into the script. So when I feel that discomfort in the silence, that urge to run, I usually read it as a big red warning sign. Danger. Lack of definition ahead. Escape.
And we need to learn to read that signal completely differently, to reverse the interpretation. That discomfort isn't a warning sign of danger, it's more like an invitation.
An invitation.
The most profound invitation life offers, perhaps. An invitation to stop performing, to stop the endless editing and curating of your inner experience to fit some ideal image. It's just an invitation to be, right here, with your raw, unfiltered existence, your messiness, your contradictions, your quiet longings, all of it.
Wow. The idea that silence, which feels so empty, like a void, is actually full of presence, full of possibility. That's kind of mind-blowing.
It's the truth hidden beneath the illusion of noise. Silence isn't emptiness. It's the palpable presence of awareness itself. You don't need to fight the silence or conquer it. You just need to gradually, gently stop being so afraid of the presence it reveals. Because that awareness, that's the ground floor. That's where healing starts. That's where we can finally meet those buried feelings instead of just digging the hole deeper.
Okay, this connects back to what you said about suffering, about dukkha. How does resistance play into this?
Right, let's talk about dukkha. It's often translated just as suffering or pain. But a more nuanced understanding is friction. Yeah, the deep grinding friction that happens when we resist reality, when we're constantly pushing and pulling against what is.
Like desperately trying to hold on to pleasant things, shoving away unpleasant things, and just ignoring everything else.
Exactly that. Clinging, aversion, ignoring, that's the friction of dukkha. And silence. Silence is like sandpaper for the soul in a way. It ruthlessly strips away all the usual buffers, all the distractions we use to avoid feeling that friction directly.
No more Netflix to numb the loneliness, no argument to distract from feeling inadequate, no achievement to paper over the cracks.
None of it. You're left with just the raw, immediate experience of that friction.
And that raw experience, without our usual defenses, it feels terrifying because we instantly wrap it in a story, don't we? Usually a catastrophe story.
That's it. That is the absolute core of the problem. The actual suffering, most of the time, isn't the raw feeling itself. It's the elaborate, personalized, often completely made-up story that the ego immediately spins around the feeling. The ego cannot stand unstoried experience.
Can you give an example? Like, how does that story wrapping work in a real moment?
Okay, think about walking alone in the woods at dusk. You hear a sudden rustle in the bushes nearby. What happens instantly?
Heart pounds, adrenaline, body tenses up.
Right, that physiological fear response. That's real. It's useful information. That's the Vedana, the feeling tone of alarm. But what happens in your head simultaneously?
Oh yeah, immediate story. Bear, someone hiding, I'm alone, I'm gonna get hurt, I can't handle this.
Exactly. The body gives you a jolt of useful fear data. The ego writes a whole horror movie script in milliseconds. That script drives the panic way beyond the initial signal.
So the feeling is just energy, information. But the ego turns it into a narrative of doom.
Precisely. The ego doesn't just feel a wave of sadness and note it. It instantly narrates, see, I am broken. This proves I'm unlovable. It doesn't just feel a jolt of anxiety, it declares with certainty. Something terrible is about to happen, and I need to control everything right now to stop it. These narratives feel like truth, but they're often just habits, old, outdated survival programs running on autopilot, and they need noise to keep going. Silence forces us to see the rustle before we write the monster into the script.
Okay, but how? How do we look at the rustle, feel the jolt, without instantly hitting play on that internal horror movie? How do we start being the storyteller?
We practice becoming the observer. We befriend the experience instead of fighting it. There's a great metaphor from the Tibetan tradition. The mind is like a wild horse.
A wild horse.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
powerful, maybe untamed.
Exactly. Now, the ego is like an aggressive, terrified rider trying to break the horse with force, shouting, yanking the reins, digging in the spurs, trying to force it down a path it doesn't want to go. What's the result?
Chaos, resistance, the horse bucks harder, exhaustion, dust everywhere.
Sounds familiar, right? That's often our internal state when we try to force ourselves to just calm down or stop feeling that.
Totally. It just creates more struggle, more noise.
Right. So, sati, mindfulness, the practice of presence.
Mm-hmm.
It's like learning to be a different kind of rider. It's about befriending the horse,
Right.
sitting gently, allowing its wild energy to be there, but giving it space,
Yeah.
letting it run if it needs to run, but without adding your own panic to the mix. Eventually, with gentle presence, the horse starts to slow down. It finds its own natural rhythm.
That gentle presence, that's the alchemy of awareness you mentioned.
That's it. It transforms the raw energy of reactivity into the gold of realization.
Okay, I want that alchemy. So, practically speaking, I sit in silence and boom, that familiar knot of shame tightens in my stomach. Instead of the ego screaming, "You're worthless, hide," what do I actually do with my attention?
This is the practice of vipassana, insight meditation. You make a conscious choice.
Yeah.
Turn your attention towards the raw feeling. But, and this is key, you consciously leave the story behind, just for this moment.
Okay, feeling, not story. Then what?
Then you investigate gently. Ask yourself, 1, what is this feeling tone specifically? Can I name it? Shame, fear, sadness, just name it simply. 2, where do I feel this in my body? Is it a tightness here in the chest? A hollowness in the belly? Heat in my face? Be really specific like a scientist observing data. 3, what's its quality? Is it sharp, dull, vibrating, heavy? Does it stay the same or does it shift and change moment to moment?
So, label the feeling, locate the physical sensation, observe its quality without getting caught in why I feel it or what it means about me.
Exactly. You're creating a crucial separation between the raw sensation and the narrative the ego desperately wants to attach to this sensation.
And what happens then? Does the feeling just vanish?
Not necessarily, not instantly, but something profound shifts. In that moment of clear, non-judgmental observation, the power dynamic changes. The emotion might still be there, but it loses its power to define you. It's no longer, I am shame. It becomes, there's the feeling of shame arising right now, felt in this tightness in my chest.
You stop identifying with it. You create space.
You create space, life-saving space. And in that space, you start to recognize experientially that these emotions aren't solid rocks that belong to me. They're more like waves. Impersonal waves arising from conditions, cresting in awareness, and eventually dissolving back into the ocean. They aren't mine in a permanent sense.
Okay, that feels lighter, less like I'm drowning in them.
That lightness is the beginning of freedom.
This whole process seems to circle back to that modern habit, the phone reach. The second there's a gap, an empty moment, reach. Why do we do that so compulsively?
It goes back to that deep fear, doesn't it? The fear of the void, the ego's terror. If I stop doing, stop consuming, stop performing, stop getting validated.
Maybe I'll just disappear, become irrelevant, become nothing.
That's the core belief driving it.
Mhm.
And that belief is the foundation of what we could call the great illusion.
The great illusion.
The illusion that confuses activity with existence. The ego believes deep down that it needs to be constantly doing something, constantly being seen, constantly generating noise likes, comments, plans, worries, just to prove that it's still here. It needs constant feedback to feel real.
Like shouting into the void, I exist, look at me!
Exactly. And all the while, the silence, the stillness we dread, it's just quietly whispering something else.
What's it whispering?
You are already here. You don't need to prove it. Your existence doesn't depend on your activity.
That's profoundly countercultural.
Deeply. So the next time you feel that intense urge to escape the quiet, to fill the space, maybe pause, just for a breath, and gently ask that inner part of you that's scrambling, what am I actually afraid of feeling right now if I just stay still?
When I've managed to sit with that question past the surface noise, the answer usually comes down to something really simple and kind of painful. It's, I'm afraid of being nobody.
Yes,
That fear of just being insignificant, unimportant.
that is it. That's the ego's bedrock terror. Insignificance. Being nobody. But here comes the ultimate reversal, the biggest flip we can make. What if? What if that nobody you're so afraid of isn't annihilation at all? What if it's actually freedom?
Freedom. How freedom from what? That fear feels so real, so gripping.
Freedom from the performance. Freedom from the exhausting, lifelong job of having to construct, curate, defend, and constantly update a rigid somebody for the world and for yourself.
So freedom from the pressure of maintaining the mask.
Exactly. The moment you start to relax the need to perform the role of who you think you are, you simultaneously relax the need to perform for everyone else. You start to allow your actual inner experience, the doubts, the flaws, the grief, the uncertainties, to simply be there, without needing to immediately edit them, judge them, or hide them.
That sounds incredibly courageous, to just stop editing your own humanity.
It is the deepest courage, and in that space of non-editing, of radical allowance, that's where real transformation happens. Not through force, but through letting be. Think of a river thick with mud.
Okay. Muddy water.
If you want it to clear, what do? Do you stir it more frantically? Try to scoop out every particle of mud?
No, that would just make it worse. You have to. Let it settle, stop disturbing it.
Exactly. You let it be still. And the mud naturally settles out. The clarity emerges on its own. Our minds, our sense of self, they operate under the same principle. When we stop frantically stirring things up with noise and resistance and performance, our inherent clarity, our wisdom, which was always there beneath the mud, starts to shine through.
Okay, but what about the ego itself? That part that keeps stirring, that keeps resisting. If it's causing all this trouble, shouldn't we try to, defeat it, get rid of it, starve it out?
That's often our first impulse, isn't it?
Yeah.
To see the ego as the enemy. But we need to soften that view significantly. If we make the ego the enemy, what are we doing?
Creating more conflict, more resistance, more dukkha.
Precisely. We just add another layer to the war. Instead, maybe we can start to see the ego not as a villain, but as, perhaps, a very frightened child.
A frightened child?
Yes. A part of our psyche that learned, probably very early on, to use certain strategies, control, narrative, avoidance, drama, to try and protect us from pain it didn't understand and didn't know how else to handle. It's using outdated tools, but its intention deep down might be protective.
So it's not malicious, just misguided and scared.
Perhaps. And the key insight is, you are not that frightened child. You are the awareness that can see the child, that can hold the child's fear with compassion. And that awareness, that witnessing presence, if we cultivate it, if we learn to rest in it, it's already calm, it's already whole, it's already free. The child is acting out within that space.
Wow. Holding the ego like a frightened child rather than fighting it like a monster, that changes the energy completely.
It changes everything. It shifts from battle to befriending.
So if this whole path is about allowance, about witnessing, about befriending even the difficult parts, we have to fundamentally change how we relate to those really intense things that surface in the silence. The deep shame, the rage we've suppressed, the sheer terror.
We have to arrive at the ultimate insight, really, which is we have to reject rejection itself.
Reject rejection. What does that mean?
It means realizing that true liberation, deep inner freedom, isn't about cutting off parts of ourselves. It's not about eradicating the anger or conquering the fear or finally silencing the ego. Why? Because any act of rejection, even subtle rejection, is just another form of resistance. It's arguing with what is already here. And resistance, as we've seen, is the root of dukkha.
So the goal isn't to become some perfectly serene, flawless being who's risen above all that messy human stuff.
Not at all. The goal is integration, wholeness.
Yeah.
And that comes not through cutting away, but through seeing clearly. Liberation arises when we can finally see these difficult thoughts and emotions clearly, hold them gently, maybe even tenderly, within our awareness, and realize they were never actually separate from awareness to begin with.
They were happening within the space, not as enemies invading it.
Exactly. The ego isn't some solid wall blocking us from peace. It's more like, think of it as a wave.
A wave on the ocean of awareness.
Perfect. A temporary wave rising up from the vast, deep ocean of consciousness. For a moment, it takes on a form. I am hurt. I am special. I am afraid. And it believes, often quite fiercely, that its temporary waveform is the whole reality. It forgets it's made of water.
But a wave can't exist without the ocean beneath it.
It's impossible. And the ego, that wave of identification, cannot exist without the underlying, sustaining reality of awareness. The noise helps maintain the illusion that the wave is separate and independent.
So the problem isn't the wave itself, the ego process, but the illusion that it's separate from the water, from awareness.
That's the core illusion that silence helps us see through. So when you sit in silence and the ego flares up, maybe it gets defensive or anxious or boastful, the practice isn't to condemn it or slap it down.
Befriend the frightened child.
Yes. Maybe even silently thank it for trying its best to protect you, however clumsily, and then, gently but firmly, bring the new tool online. Pure attention.
How is this attention different from the ego's usual way of paying attention, which is usually analyzing and judging?
This attention isn't analysis. It isn't judgment. It isn't problem solving. This attention is pure presence, a fierce, unwavering, but also incredibly gentle willingness to be with what is arising exactly as it is, without needing it to be different.
A willingness to be with, that sounds like acceptance, or even love.
Presence, held without agenda, without trying to fix or change. That is love. In its purest, most unconditional form, it's the highest form of attention.
Okay, so if I bring that quality of attention, that fierce, loving presence, to say my deepest, oldest grief that surfaces in the quiet, how does that change things?
It changes the fundamental question you're asking about the grief. You stop asking, why me? Why must I feel this unbearable pain over what's lost? That's the ego's question.
And what does the question become?
With presence, the question gently shifts to something like, wow, look at this intense energy. What is this feeling trying to show me about my capacity to love? What is this teaching me?
So grief isn't just pain, it's...
You might discover that grief isn't just the pain of absence. It's actually all the love you still hold for what's gone. But that love now has nowhere to land. It's trapped energy, demanding release, demanding acknowledgement. And in the silence, when the frantic doing stops, that immense love can finally find its home. Not in the past, not in fixing, but right here, in the tender ache of this present moment.
So the intense emotion transforms from an obstacle into a teacher, a source of wisdom even.
Exactly. It's not solved or erased, it's integrated, it's honored, its message is received. This reminds me of that beautiful story you find in the Mahayana Buddhist tradition about the hidden jewel.
Ah, yes. The man searching the world.
That's the one. He spends his entire life, right, travels everywhere, endures incredible hardships, seeks out guru after guru, chases every external sign of enlightenment, searching for this priceless jewel he believes is out there somewhere.
And he never finds it out there.
Never. He returns home, old, exhausted, feeling like a complete failure. And only then, maybe as he's mending his old, worn-out robe, he discovers the jewel. Or was it?
Sewn into the lining of his own robe the whole time.
The whole time. It was always with him, hidden only by his frantic outward search.
So silence is like coming home, stopping the external search.
Silence is that return. It's the practice of remembering what was never actually lost, what was always sewn into the very fabric of your being. You don't need to become someone brave enough for silence. You already are the presence that exists beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath all the stories and the desperate need to prove yourself. There is a profound stillness that has never wavered, not even for a second.
And it's not empty.
It's not empty at all. It's full. Full of everything: joy, sorrow, anger, peace, confusion, clarity, all of it held, lightly, tenderly, in the vast accepting space of awareness that is your true nature.
The stillness wasn't something we had to build or achieve. It was the container we were in all along, just obscured by the mud we kept stirring up.
That is the great reversal, the ultimate reframe. We started thinking silence was the frightening absence of self, a void to be feared. But the deep dive reveals silence is actually the profound presence of the true self, with a capital S.
Not the small, noisy, fearful ego self.
No, but the boundless, awake, inherently peaceful awareness that is always here, just waiting patiently for us to stop resisting and simply pay attention. It's already free.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
This deep dive has really shifted things for me. We started seeing noise as this necessary armor, and now realizing silence isn't emptiness, but the presence of awareness itself. And that awareness is where everything begins. Healing, transformation.
It's the starting point. So the invitation, really, for you listening is this. The next time that silence lands heavily, the next time that familiar discomfort starts to rise, see if you can just notice the immediate conditioned reflex, the urge to fill it, to scroll, to run.
Notice the urge, but maybe don't act on it immediately.
Just for a breath. Lean into the discomfort, just slightly. Give the silence permission to be there. Let it start to gently dissolve the frantic stories. Let it melt away the masks you wear, maybe even the ones you didn't know you had on. Remember, you are not the noise you make. You exist simply because you are here, breathing, feeling, witnessing. And that is truly, profoundly enough.
That takes courage, though, to choose stillness when everything screams flee or create drama.
Is the path of courage, yes.
Yeah.
And maybe that leaves us with just one final thought. Not something to analyze or answer right away, but something to just let settle. Let it land in that quiet space we've been talking about.
Okay, what is it?
What if the very thing you've been running from, the very feeling you've been avoiding your whole life, what if that is the doorway? What if the thing you've been avoiding is the very thing that will set you free? Don't rush to answer that. Just let the question echo. Let it breathe. Let it be a companion on the journey. Because the real deep dive, the most liberating exploration, it doesn't end when the sound stops. It only truly begins in the next breath,
Hmm.
in the silence.